I know a thing or two, but not too many things. And I'm gonna go ahead and guess why you clicked on this video. You're copying other artists. You're out here taking images off of Pinterest and Instagram. Instead of interpreting it and making it your own, you're just copying it exactly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't. If you're a young artist, I understand why you're copying other artists' work, but there is this expectation that one day you're gonna stop doing that and find your own voice. How do you do that? I'm here to tell you how. I'm gonna give you 5 pieces of advice with exercises, real life things you can actually do to help you find your own voice and your unique style. So let's go. If you're stuck in this mode of copying other artists' work, I would highly advise you to take your own reference photos. It doesn't matter if you're using the camera on your phone, any camera is fine. Ask your friends and family to model for you, or if you're like, no, I'm too embarrassed, you can always use yourself as a reference and take photos of yourself. If you don't have access to the things or people that you want to paint, you need to get really creative with how you're going to take these photos. Let's say, for example, you wanted to paint lions and tigers in the snow. Really hard to get access to those lions and tigers. I mean, you could always go to the zoo or something like that, but you can't pose them. So something that I would recommend doing if you're kind of finding yourself stuck in this scenario, very specific scenario, but if you're stuck in this scenario, go to Dollarama or the dollar store, whatever you call it, wherever you live, get some of those plastic little animal toys, pose them, and then cover a surface with sugar. That looks close enough like snow that I feel like it could pass. And then take a photo of that and work from that. I think there's so many different interesting ways to take these photos that I think that if you were really able to tap into your own creativity and find a way to do this, you can make any reference photo work for you. When taking reference photos, something that I find really helpful to do is to only use one reference photo when painting. Don't work from 4 or 5 images because it's going to be too tricky for you to make the lighting look all consistent. Just work from one image. Unless you're going for this collage kind of effect, then definitely do something like that. Work from multiple images. Try your best to work from one image, get that image as close as you can to your painting, because that's going to make the art making process so much easier when you actually go to make your work. The closer you get your reference image to what you want to paint, the easier it is for you to paint it. Okay, moving on. Second thing. Everyone's gonna hate me for saying this, but someone's gotta say it. Stop collecting so much images of other people's art. You can do it every once in a while. I'm not saying never do it. I'm not saying never look at anyone's art. I'm just saying that there's a limit.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
I find a lot of artists that haven't found their own voice yet are serial collectors of other artists' art, and they're just on that scroll of Pinterest and Instagram all day long. They become addicted to this because they don't know how to get inspired without it. And we're trying to break that cycle. So 2 things I'm gonna suggest here. Number 1, pick 10 of the images that you've recently collected and write 3 things about those images that you really like. Maybe you like the content. Maybe you like the way it's painted. Get really specific about what it is that you like about it though. For example, if you like the way that it's painted, what is it about the way that it's painted that you like? Is it the application of paint? Is the application of paint thick? Is it thin? Is it textured? Is it smooth? Are the pencil lines neat or erratic? Do you like the composition because it's busy or because it's really simple? Start breaking down what you like and why you're drawn to it. When you do this, you'll start noticing that certain things keep popping up over and over again. Pay attention to those things and find a way to incorporate them into your next piece. It'll give you a sense of direction. Next thing I highly recommend, it's an underrated thing, but it's to live your life. You need multiple different sources of inspiration that are going on in your life at one time. Maybe music is a huge inspiration to you. Maybe taking a walk is something that resets you and calms you. Maybe you love to go fishing painting. I don't know. I don't know what that is for you. All I'm saying is that other artists' work shouldn't be the only source of inspiration in your life. I find a lot of the time when people buy art, it's not because they just wanted a beautiful painting. Although that can be a reason for some people to purchase art, most of the time I find that people buy art because of the story that's attached to it. They're buying the story. And in order for you to create an interesting story, you gotta live. Which ties into my next point, which is, how do you decide your content? I'm gonna tell you. Think about your own personal interests and something that you already know a lot about. This is gonna be something that you also have a personal connection with. Let's say you know a lot about gardening and the native flowers that are in your local area. Maybe your grandmother was the one that got you into this and taught you all of this stuff about plants and flowers. And the reason you continue to do it is because it's about those memories and that connection that you felt with her. People like that stuff. And also it's better for you to have these attachments to your work. It makes you really care about what you're doing. What you're really missing from your own art is your own stories. This is a good time for you to become the most self-centered version of yourself ever. Really look inward. What do you love? What are you obsessed with? What could you talk about forever and ever? And sometimes that thing can be as personal as yourself. Frida Kahlo only created art about her own life, and she did like 1 million self-portraits of herself. She was the most interesting subject to herself, and that's okay. I always felt like I didn't know anything about anything, and I still feel like that, honestly, but I do know my family, which is why I paint my family a lot. I know my family like no one knows my family. Having that type of information and background stuff that not a lot of people know about, or very few people know about, it's giving the viewer this like look inside. That's kind of how people get interested. They don't know a lot about it, now they're learning about it. All right, let's move on to number 4. My 4th piece of advice that I would give you is to experiment. Do everything wrong. One of the reasons I don't really like art school is because although you can experience the benefits of how to do everything right in art, that way of creating gets beat into you to the point where it becomes hard to step outside of that. You lose the ability to come up with creative ways to make art because you become almost obsessed with making things the right way. I'm using a lot of hand movements and air quotes today. I don't know what's going on. And don't get it twisted. I'm not saying technique is bad. I'm not saying learning technique is bad. I think learning technique is good, but then you gotta jump off from there. I think it's bad if you're too caught up in doing things right and doing the technique correctly that you just will not step outside of that ever. Then it's bad. For example, if you're a painter, they always say work from dark to light. Think about how boring it would be if all painters worked exactly the same and painted all of their pieces exactly the same. There would be no variety out there. There would be no uniqueness. Art would be so boring. There's so many painters that are literally famous for breaking the rules. Let's take Jackson Pollock, for example. He added cigarette butts, sand to his paintings. Don't be afraid to get a little weird. You're an artist, remember that. We're notoriously weird. People are really just paying for that. They're paying for the weirdness. Dive into it. Also, this sounds super cheesy, so get ready. But there's a quote that basically goes, if you want something you've never had before, then you have to do something you've never done before. If you want to make art that's unique and different from what everyone else is doing, you gotta be willing to do things that are different from what everyone else is doing. And that's straight up facts, okay? I don't make the rules, guys, although there aren't any rules. So if you're still watching this video, something that I would tell you to do is to experiment with a different medium, either this week or next, that you haven't used before. Something completely different. Maybe you've never painted on glass before, or maybe you want to combine 2 materials together that you've never combined together before. Another thing that I feel like this all kind of ties in together, so I'm making it one point. It's really important, I think, to also change your process. What do I mean by that? A lot of artists just go from reference to painting. That's it. that's their process. And I'm not shaming that because that's my process. But if you want to add things to your process, there's that option too. Think about what your content and your story is about. Let's say your work is about something digital and you're working primarily just oil paint on canvas. An interesting thing to add to your process would be maybe to take your reference photo, put it through Photoshop, and change some things about it. Change the lighting, change the color. Or maybe you could take your reference photo and put it in a scanner and then move your reference photo around while the image is scanning to create this like weird warped thing. And then you paint from that. Add multiple processes. You don't have to just do one process. Maybe challenge yourself to think about how many different processes you can use in one painting. Just see what happens. You're not losing anything from it. Okay, number 5, last piece of advice I can give you is to get critiqued. Talk to your friends and family about your art. See what they're saying. Do they like these new changes you've made or do they hate them? Honestly, it's more important if you like the changes, but it's always good to hear about what other people are saying. Sometimes it can feel intimidating to ask other people to critique your work because it feels so personal sometimes. And especially the advice I've given you is to basically take something personal from your life and start making work about that. It can be scary. I totally get it. If you feel too intimidated to talk to people in your life face to face, you can always go online, see what other people are saying. There's Reddit forums where you can post your work, talk about other people's work, get ideas, get inspired. That's an option. Also, I know this exists in some cities. There's like critique club where you literally go somewhere and a bunch of artists come together and then you critique each other's work. That sounds scary, but also I've heard other people in my life do it and they said that it was really helpful. Especially if you're not in school anymore or if you're not going to art school, it's good to kind of have other artists' input in what you're doing. They're going to give you the best advice, first of all, of what steps to take after. And then also, they're just so insightful. A lot of artists are really nice too because they're also getting their work critiqued and they don't want to be torn apart either. Highly recommend kind of reaching out to your community in any way that you possibly can. It will give you new perspectives about your work that you could have never thought about on your own. And something I want to say about critiques is that if it's done right, it's not meant to stop you from making art. It's meant to encourage you to go in a different direction or continue what you're doing. Just something for you guys to keep in mind. All right, and that's it. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked it, give it a like, do all of that stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.